More in the cannabis industry. We're joined by Kevin Murphy, CEO of Acreage Holdings. Do you think that the recent action in the SAG is just growing pains, or in the industry in general? Or does it point to it maybe being problematic that we actually get to where there's a federal legalization near term?
I think all markets will ebb and flow.
Is that what
today,
this is?
I think so. Today we're in a 2008 event for cannabis, but we know that there was a 2009, 2010, 2011, and from our vantage point, cannabis being one of the fastest growing industries in the United States today, we will see clearly the backside of this, and I believe at this point there's no better time to invest. How many people legged out of tech in the early 2000s not to participate in the Googles, the Amazons? And so I think...
just with that comparison, they also didn't participate in the pets.coms and others that disappeared.
No. And that's where you differentiate between a number of the expert players in this space. Clearly, there's a differentiator between the haves and have-nots, for sure.
But, Kevin, it's going to be federally legalized recreational use of cannabis is the end goal. When do you know?
I think there's a number of goals along the way that gets us there. Today, 33 states have a medical program,
right,
of which 11 have an adult use program. Okay. So we believe the opportunity set in those states is extraordinary.
You say 2020 is going to be a great year. Every Democratic candidate wants to legalize it. Joe Biden is on record saying the same thing he said back in 2010. He said, I believe it's a gateway drug and legalization is a mistake. They ask him that again, and he says he still has the same feeling. So not every Democrat, the leading Democratic candidate is not for legalization.
Well, Vice President Biden does advocate for states' rights, as does the President of the United States.
So he's talking about federal, just the federal one he might oppose, but
sure,
whatever the states do.
Sure, but what we're really striving for is federal permissibility, making it okay to utilize the plant in the states where it's legal. And today it's 33 states, and the opportunity set there is quite extraordinary.
Federal's a big deal, though, because you can't do the banking, interstate banking, if it's not federal.
Well, federal is a big deal, but I can look at it quite differently and say it gives my company a huge advantage now that a lot of the larger consumer product players can't be in it today, which gives me the opportunity to grow Acreage, to be ultimately, when it is federally legal, to be a global dominant player alongside of Canopy Growth.
Here's the other issue with not being federally approved, and that is that there is not federal oversight and regulation. We've spoken with Scott Gottlieb, the former head of the FDA, about that. I think there are questions about what you can really trust with these things, because lots of tests have shown that the amount of CBD or the amount of marijuana or THC in any of these products is not always as advertised, and there's not federal oversight.
And that needs to change. I, for one, believe that we have to really create more predictable, dosable product offerings for people that can rely on what they're using. And that's where I think descheduling or rescheduling this drug. Today, it's a narcotic, a Schedule I drug with no testing. And from our vantage point, that has to change for sure, and really bring to light what really the majority of this country believe. And they believe that this plant should be available for adult use, and more than 90% of this country believes it has medicinal value.
When you have we have on the screen here, cannabis and banking. When you talk to CEOs of banks about working with you in this industry, what do they tell you?
We'd love to have the opportunity to bank you and the rest of your colleagues. That's what I'm hearing. But I believe safe banking is around the corner. Right. I truly believe that there are three major issues why safe banking needs to be available. Number one, it takes people out of harm's way. People are at risk transacting in a cash business.
You still think it's a cash business?
Pardon?
It's still a cash business.
It is predominantly. We are afforded the opportunity to use debit cards and other forms of payment, but the smaller players don't have that advantage. And from our vantage point, it's unfortunate. There's no reason why one would have to pay their taxes with truckloads of cash. It just doesn't make sense. And if you want to fuel an illicit business, make it a cash business. Let's not make it a cash business, tax it appropriately, and account for those taxes. That's what we're striving for.
Those numbers on the stocks, that's more than ebb and flow, but maybe it has to do with the euphoria that was in the marketplace pre-2019. It doesn't necessarily mean that the overall story has changed down the road.
The overall story hasn't changed.
But and they all were way ahead of themselves.
They may have been, but I'm a believer that they will catch up and they'll surpass that. And so from our vantage point, again, look back to 2008 where you could have bought a number of stocks at their all-time lows, and they were either taken out or prospering years later. So we have had huge momentum in 2019 with safe banking in the House, overwhelmingly passing. We've had the MORE Act coming out with very, very positive indications out of Congress, and I think it's just a matter of time.